Hi, everyone, and welcome to Authentic Voices. I'm Noma, and this is a space where we want to hold real and unfiltered conversations with people that have stories that deserve to be heard. And today I'm really excited. It's our first episode, and I'm really excited that our first guest is a young Zimbabwean musician whose journey is both inspiring and bold. He's not just a singer, but he's also a storyteller. And through his music, he's been navigating the highs and the lows of building a career in Zimbabwe while staying true to his gift. His name, Sarungano. Sarungano has a very interesting story, and trust me, this story is one that you want to lean in for. Sarungano, I want to welcome you to Authentic Voices and thank you for being the first guest on our show. And I'm so glad that you could join us. So, before we dive in, Sarangano, could you introduce yourself to the listeners and also share how music first became a part of your life? I know you've said it goes way back. Please share with us your story and also when did you get to a point where you were like, this is something I'm actually good at.
Hello, my name is Sarungano. I discovered music at a very young age. I think I was before preschool because it's music was always a huge part of worship, and we used to go to church a lot as a family. So because of that, I began to vibe with it a lot early in my life, and then from there, I continued to love music until now. Yeah, and then I discovered that, well, I think I can do this. In the later years when I was in secondary school, I think when I was around between form 3 and form 5, somewhere there. That's when I felt, well, I think I can actually sing, and then I started writing down some of my first songs and so on.
You're so right. Music is a big part of Zimbabwean life, and it's actually the heartbeat of Zimbabwean life, whether it's in worship, in celebrating, and also even in activism. So, how did you see music shaping not only your own journey as a musician, but also the community that you were growing up in? How did you see music pushing or shaping the way things were done in the community?
Like I said, music was a huge part of the is a huge part of the Zimbabwean community. Music plays a role, especially in, for example, at church. The Zimbabwean people, they do not worship without music. I think even people around the rest of the world, they always have to have music when they are worshiping, or when it's a huge part of worship. And music is also part of the other role that it has played over the years. It is to conscientize the masses. For example, over the past couple of years, we've had problems like drug abuse, for example, and most musicians have been at the forefront of trying to address that problem using their music. So music plays many different roles in the community, and uh, it only depends on how creative we can be with it. But it is a huge part of almost anything. Yeah, religion, be it politics, be it just having fun, the vibes, all of that. So music is the community actually.
But Sarangano, you know how it is for most Zimbabwean families, and this is even true even outside Zimbabwe. People get a bit, families get a bit nervous when you start talking of wanting to join the arts or to do music. And honestly, it's not that they think it's bad in itself, but I think what they're thinking is, but how are you going to buy your groceries, right? Komaricha bakupi. So was your family supportive? Were they cheering you on from the start, or did you have to keep convincing them along the way?
Well, that's actually a great question. It was not easy to get the support of my family because for various reasons. One of them being that I was very, very academically gifted, and everyone had a path which they thought was more suitable for me. So by and large, everyone never in a million years would have thought that I'd, choose music as a career. Everyone thought maybe doctor, maybe pilot, maybe something else, maybe an engineer of sorts. So never, never music. So it was quite difficult, to transition them from something they were fixated on towards something that I felt I wanted to do. But over the years, what I loved about them is they were not. It wasn't written in stone for them. By and large, my family, slowly began to support me, slowly try to understand what this new hobby slash career was all about, and until now they support, some of the work that I do. Yeah, at least the decent work.
I like that part on at least the decent parts. So, Sarungano, then there comes a turning point for you, right? Where music stops being just a fun thing that you're doing and it becomes something that you decide to pursue seriously. For you, when did that shift happen? You've mentioned legends like Oliver Mtukudzi in the past, in past interactions, and others as influences. But who are the mentors? Who are the role models that you had in Zimbabwe and beyond? And how did they shape the way you approach music and carry yourself as an artist?
Well, after high school, there's a time when I needed to go to university, but I didn't have the money or the funding to go to university. So I began to take music more and more seriously. I was actually forced by life circumstances to take music more and more seriously. And, as I was doing that, I began to get a gig here, a gig there, I began to get money, some of which I used to fund, my college education. So I'm guessing that after high school, when I didn't have, the easiest options, music became more and more attractive as an option because it was there. You could just look for work, try to perform for people, and if they pay you, you know, it's good. But if also they don't pay you, sometimes you'd say it's good because you'd have enjoyed yourself. It's part of something that you love to do. So it's after high school that I decided to take music more seriously. Um, well, Pakare Pai played a huge role, Oliver Mtukudzi, in fact, in terms of mentorship. After seeing him perform, so many times, I began to look more closely at his work ethic, more closely at how he had structured his music career, and he became a huge influence, and not just in terms of the music that I was actually singing, but also in terms of how I carried myself as a musician. Yeah, so yeah, there you have it. But also, I have many other people that I've been looking up to, both in Zimbabwe and outside Zimbabwe. I mean, in Zimbabwe, um, the legends, most of them, I loved their music. I loved how they wrote about the social problems, about the good times, about anything. The likes of Thomas Mapfumo, who's now retiring, the likes of James Chimombe, John Chibadura, Baba Manyeruke, all these people. Mai Suluma, Mai Shinksai Suluma, I loved him. I've always loved the music growing up. So those people, even not physically, but from what the music that they've done, they mentored me. But then Tuku was very physical. He was actually there, uh, physically to mentor me in that regard. Yeah.
Yeah, that is very interesting. And thanks for sharing that. I'm sorry you just got cut off a bit at the end there, but let's just move on. When we're looking at every creative, right, and they have inner battles, the self belief versus the doubts. And when you chose to follow music as a career, what fears or challenges did you personally have to overcome?
The fear that we as musicians mostly face is, what if it doesn't work out? There's that voice. So it's actually a huge battle between self-doubt and self-belief, like having faith in yourself and doubting yourself. It is the biggest hurdle for any musician, for anyone really in life. When you look at the work that is cut out for you, ahead of you, you get to feel, can I do this? And then that becomes the largest the largest fear.
Another thing you've also said is that education gave you a broader perspective, letting you draw inspiration from different cultures. When you're looking at your education and various learnings, how would you say they have shaped the way you write and the way you interpret your music?
Education really did influence me musically, because when you are educated, there are things that you can appreciate. You can appreciate other cultures. You can appreciate, for example, the culture in which, let's say, Michael Jackson was writing. So you can take some elements from him, and see if they fit into your own culture, the culture for which you are writing. So education, yes, it is a huge influence. The level of education is a huge influence on how a person writes music, how a person relates to the world, how a person interprets the world. So it is a huge influence on the music itself. Um, Largely, I think the mistake that is made, especially in African countries, is separating art and education. Art and education are not meant to be separated. They are meant to help each other. For example, going to university for a musician, it helps the musician because they have a better worldview. They can write better work. Uh, Similarly, going to any type of education, for any maybe a visual artist, for example, it means they can appreciate more, and they which means they can give more. So I think this separation of uh, music and this separation of music and education is, it doesn't it's not proper. The two of them should actually move hand in glove, and you know help the person to become a whole person. Yeah.
And now let's talk about the career side of things. What have been the biggest challenges that you've had to face as an artist?
The biggest challenge in Zimbabwe for musicians is, I think it's always on the economics of Zimbabwe. The economics of Zimbabwe, the mindset that most of our clients have, sometimes, is that music is not actual work. So some of them do, when you give them a charge for what you do, some of them do not want to pay for what you do. So at the end, most musicians and most talents, they are crippled because they don't have the resources, you know, uh, which they are supposed to get from that relationship between their work and what they get from their work. For example, if a person sings at your function, if you pay them, what you are doing is you're feathering that person's career, because they can use the money to get studio time, they can use the money to research, they can use the money to buy an instrument and become better and better. So I could go on and on about that, but the largest, by and large, crippling factor in the music industry at the moment for most Zimbabwean artists is the economic hardships that they face.
All right, so let's flip it to the other side, the brighter side, because it can't always be hustle and struggle, right? So, what's one of those moments that made you think, yep, this is why I do music? One of your proudest achievements as a musician, as Sarungano.
Proudest achievements. Well, I think I'm proud of the fact that I set out on a journey and I have, reached certain milestones in the journey. For example, I set out without an album, but I've recorded some albums now. So I'm proud of myself for doing that. I set out, alone on this journey, but now I have a band, I have a functioning team. So, that's something that I'm proud of. I set out on this journey. I set out only, coming from Zimbabwe, but I have traveled the world through music. So I am proud of that. I set out as a solo musician, but I've touched lives of some people. There are people that tell me stories about how, the music that I've written may have, changed them or touched them in some way. So those are the, those are the things that make me wake up and want to do this again, because I look at where I was and where I am. There's a huge difference, and I'm grateful and forever thankful for that.
Yeah, I must say, Sarungano, I followed your music since your days at Pakarapaya. I'm also a Norton girl, so I've followed your music since your days at Pakarapaya, and I have to say that it's been lovely just seeing your progression in your music career. And of course, not every day is easy. And when things get tough, whether it's financially, emotionally, or creatively, what keeps you going? And what's your source of motivation during these tough moments?
Okay, tough moments. They are there for everyone, even those that are not in the music industry. But um, you have to have goals that you look at, and they have to give you a reason to continue doing what you're doing. um, and sometimes the strength to go through the tough times comes from people. There are people that will sit with you and tell you, please, please don't give up, please don't quit. I have fans like that. There are times when I feel like, wow, this is too much, and then you get to talk to someone about it, and they give you the strength to continue waking up every day and doing what you're doing, and that's, a community that you have around you is also a huge part of the motivation to continue to do more.
And when you're looking at the Zimbabwean context, do you feel there are enough structures and support systems in Zimbabwe right now for young musicians? Or is it something, or is it mostly really about them pushing? They have to keep pushing through on their own. What systems are out there for musicians, and do you think the systems are adequate?
I think that the structures that are in Zimbabwe, they are doing what they can. They are doing what they can. Um, for example, the fan bases that we have, fans can only give you what they have. If they don't have anything, they can't give you anything. Um, all these associations, the different associations, they can only give you what they have. If they don't have anything, they have nothing to give. So I think that um, these different organizations are doing what they can. They are doing what they can. I mean, to push music forward, to keep the art alive. They are doing what they can. But there are things that we cannot avoid. There are things that are beyond our control. For example, situations like, the economy, situations like how the taste of like the musical taste of different people may shift over time. We may want to protect our indigenous genres, for example, but then there will be a wave of amapiano coming from South Africa. How do we protect our artists from that? There will be a wave of hip hop coming from UK, from the States. How can these structures protect our our local genres from that. I wouldn't know, how they would do that. So I think they are doing what they can. Um, it may not be enough, but it's what they can do.
You raised a lot of very important and interesting ideas, Sarungano, and I believe those need a separate interview on their own. We need to dig deeper into those issues because I think they're important for us to look more into them and see how, as a nation, we can work together to also further support the arts and music industry. So, as we wrap up, I would love for you to speak directly to the next generation. What advice would you give to young Zimbabweans who are thinking, I think I have a creative side, I would want to pursue music as a career? What do you have to say to them?
The advice that I would give to youngsters who want to become musicians or artists is that if you choose to become a musician, be prepared to be alone. Be prepared to be alone because you're going to go through a time when you are your biggest fan or your only fan. You are going to lose maybe support from people you thought would support you. So be prepared to be alone. You know, um, most musical careers do not break down or get broken because they cannot play the instruments or they don't have good music. I think they get broken down or crushed when the artist is not mentally strong. So you have to be very very strong mentally, even more than here, because there are so many people who are not that good at music, but yeah, because they have a thick skull, they continued, they persevered, and a break came for them. So
And to the parents that are listening, what words of wisdom or what message would you have to share with them? I know you've talked about how your family's perspective had to evolve over time. What message would you give to families that have young ones, that have young people in their homes that are thinking or looking into pursuing the artistic path?
parents and families of potential musicians or people that want to pursue music, I think they have to understand that music is not something from outside the person, it is something within. So it's not something you can tell the person to snap out of, like snap out of it. No, I've seen the approach used by many parents is if they don't like their daughter or son to pursue music, they'll say snap out of it, but the music is inside that person. So they have to handle every one of these upcoming talents with a lot of care, and they have to try to understand before they try to understand the talent, try to understand what has motivated this person to become who they are becoming, before you try to crush the talent, because that's what happens in most African families. If you're not going with what everyone wants, you're supposed to be crushed. But what if it's inside you? You know, in trying to crush the music, you end up crushing the actual person.
Great words of wisdom, Sarungano. Thanks for that one. Vabereki. Hands na Sarungano, as you try to crush the music in your child, you're essentially crushing your own child. You're crushing your loved one. So, families, let's support our children as they pursue their careers. Now, let's look ahead, Sarungano. What's your vision, not just for your own music, but also for where Zimbabwean music as a whole could go in the years to come? And feel free to also share your goodbyes with the listeners. Thanks.
Well, it's difficult to say. It's difficult to say. Zimbabwean music so far has gone through too many transitions. So many transitions. Go to the States, for example. Um, they have different types of music, but over the years they've maintained this steady calm. If they had country in the 60s or 70s, they still have country now. If they had rock and roll back and then, they still have it now. If they had hip hop back then, they still have it now. But for Zimbabwe, it is difficult to tell where our music is going because uh, you know it switches. So the vision for Zimbabwean music would be difficult for me to define what I would want, because I don't know if I would want us to continue importing genres, or I would want a situation whereby Zimbabwe can stand. I think that's what I would want. I want a situation where Zimbabwe can stand with its genres. Like I wish we could stand with our music and then export that to the world. But unfortunately, Zimbabwe is a country that imports. We import genres of music, and we suffocate our own local art, which I don't know. Um, it's disheartening for a lot of young talent out there. So I think my vision would be, it's not a vision really, it's a wish, because a vision would be something that I can work on. Uh, like this would take the effort of a nation, of which, but yeah. Thank you for having me. It's been lovely. For those that have supported me, thank you. You can follow me at Sarungano on every social media platform. And you can always contact me for bookings on the number given.
Sarungano, thank you so much for sharing your story with us today. I love how you've been honest about both the struggles and the wins. And this is exactly the kind of conversation that we want to be hosting, the kind of conversations we want to be having here on Authentic Voices. So you've set the bar high and you set the tone right. To our listeners, if you enjoyed this episode, please share it with someone who needs encouragement to follow their passion. And don't forget to subscribe to Authentic Voices on Facebook and on YouTube. And like I said earlier, we intend to use this platform really to just amplify stories that need to be told but have largely gone untold. And if you want to book Sarungano for an event, I've put his manager's contact details in the chat. His name is Eugene Musereza. Until next time, please stay connected, stay curious, and most importantly, stay true to your voice. Bye.